Well, Mark, hard to believe this is episode 3 of Security North and South.
Hard to believe indeed, Eddie. And what are we at? Tens of watchers, listeners, or have we cracked the triple digits? What do you think? What are you sharing with everybody?
I think we've crossed that threshold into the 20s. So hopefully we get it into triple digits here with this episode and others. But in all seriousness, we have had a great response and a lot of comments, a lot of people reaching out about topics and really commenting on our last episode and really what Security North and South is all about. So we got a great episode. We're going to show you some highlights of that here in a minute. But before we jump into that, Mark, the world continues to change. Here in the U.S., COVID restrictions are starting to relax. There's even talk about no mask on public transportation. So wow. That's sort of the view from the south. What's happening up north?
Yeah, up north, I would say that things are starting to ease too. You know, speaking about my backyard here in Quebec, bunch of changes coming through early next week. You know, sort of mid-March. So looking forward to seeing what's going on. Of course, there's a bit of irony, right? As you know, I resisted COVID for 2 years and caught unfortunately was tested positive earlier this week. So it's just funny that how that kind of goes around and comes around. But you know what? If we look at it in terms of the impact on business, you know, I'm hearing more and more about people coming back to work. You know, what's that going to do for the business of security and how's that going to impact it and then just, you know, kind of general change and, you know, who's ready for what and what the mindsets are at.
Yeah, and I know both of us sort of share a similar opinion about, you know, getting back to normal and being in person. And we could do an entire episode and a talk about the digital transformation around COVID and doing things online versus in person. But we're starting to see that resumption of normality, so to speak. And of course, that's going to continue to impact the security industry. And one of the things, as we're talking today, of course, in the news is the Ukrainian conflict, the invasion of Russia into Ukraine. And I'll speak for myself. I'm certainly not qualified to speak in depth on geopolitical matters, but it certainly impacts the private security industry. And one of the biggest issues is just the cyber threat. So I know in the U.S., the Department of Homeland Security, other agencies are really ramping up to meet that eventual threat from Russia. What's going on up in Canada?
Yeah, I would say similar, right? I mean, cyber has no boundary, and maybe Eddie, just in this little chat here, we've determined what our next topic's going to be for episode number 4. Not that we want to take away from number 3, but definitely knows, and I would say is, you know, the just the economic impact too of the conflict, you know, and it manifests itself in many different ways, and you know, one of which is price of gas, you know, and that impacts all of us on a day-to-day, and think about, you know, how it impacts, you know, those delivering services in the front line, as we're talking at the same time about sort of coming back to work, you know, and not being remote. Well, you know, I've seen quite a few interesting comments and memes and so on about the price of gas of late. So
there are no shortage of opinions about that. That's for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, and just as we were starting to come to grips with the labor struggles and issues in the private security industry, now we have this gas shortage, not shortage, but increase in price, potentially a shortage in the future. And I read an article, and forgive me for not giving credit to who wrote it, I can't recall, but it had an interesting take that any gains that we had achieved when it comes to some of those labor struggles, wage inflation, is now being taken away because the private security officer, of course, has to get to work. And in some areas, that could be a 30, 45-minute commute. And so that's having an impact. And that sort of leads into our discussion with a guest here on episode 3, talking about innovation in the security industry. We had the pleasure of talking to Steve Reinharz. And Mark, I know you know him well, so give us a quick summary about what we discussed with Steve.
Yeah, caveat, of course, for those that don't know, Steve and I work together every single day, right? So we're colleagues at Robotic Assistance Devices. Steve is the founder of Robotic Assistance Devices, and we spoke about exactly that, digital transformation, innovation, right? And innovation beyond just, doing things slightly differently. It's just, hey, let's look at how services are delivered in the security space, and how is that impacting the business of security. So it was a great chat. We did it in person. We recorded this now, I guess a good couple of weeks ago. But it was fun to do. What were any takeaways, Eddie, that still spring to mind?
Yeah, and one of the things that I really left with, and talking with Steve certainly before we recorded this episode and after, was the fact that anyone that disrupts an industry or sort of shakes things up is going to really challenge the status quo. And we talk about that in this episode. You'll hear Steve's thoughts about what is innovation, and in his opinion, what is not innovation. And the biggest takeaway that I had is we really have to get to that point where we're willing to really go against the grain. And I'll probably misquote what Steve said here, but it's that not just fear of being first, now it's that fear of missing out. And that's how the industry is evolving. How can we do things better? But somebody's got to step up and say, I'll be first, and I've got to shake things up, and I've got to sort of almost force you into a new way of thinking. And so I would say, as you listen to our conversation, which I enjoyed, and I thought it was very thought-provoking, take the time to really absorb, and whether you agree or disagree, think about where you think the industry is heading, and does it need to be shaken up a bit?
Yeah, well said. And you know what? Share your comments, right? I mean, we're not sitting here in an ivory tower saying that these are all the answers. So please share your comments. Let's get some dialogue going on industry change, innovation, and you know what? If you can, comment on what the impact is to you. And until then, we hope that you enjoy the episode.
Absolutely. As always, go to securitynorthsouth.com for more information. You can follow us on YouTube and all the normal podcast platforms. So enjoy this episode with Steve Reinharz, CEO and founder of Robotic Assistance Devices. Enjoy.
Hi everyone, Mark Fulmer here with Security North South. You can find us online at securitynorthsouth.com, joined by Mr. Eddie Sorrells. Eddie?
Always a pleasure, Mark. And as we were talking just before we went on the air here, we've had the good fortune of actually being in the same room with human beings here lately. So
speaking to each other, same state, same room. Yeah, really happy with our next guest. And full disclosure, Steve Reinharz and I work together.
We do.
Right? We do. Day in, day out.
Yep.
Sometimes 7 days a week.
Most often.
Most often, usually. 7 days a week.
Yes.
Steve, thanks for joining us. Do a quick intro for yourself.
I'm Steve Reinharz. I'm the founder of Artificial Intelligence Technology Solutions, and we are bringing autonomous response devices and a new way to perform security to the security and facilities businesses. Sure. Innovation is looked upon in the industry as, I'm adding cameras to a guarding contract, or I'm adding guarding to a cameras contract, right? And, it's funny when I look at the industry, we're all the same. Like, we're all this one group, whether you're a practitioner, whether you're selling guarding services, whether you're selling camera services, everyone's trading seats every 5 to 10 years. We're all
Absolutely.
This thing. So we've all drunk the same Kool-Aid. So we all run around waving the same innovation flag, whether we're on the practitioner side or on the vendor side. And so what's happened is if you repeat something enough times with enough volume, people start to believe it. Yeah. Hey, I'm getting the new Sony camera. That's pretty innovative. Is it? Hey, I can open up my access control with an NFC piece.
Chip.
Yeah, chip from my phone. Is that innovative? Well, guys, it's innovative. I wouldn't call it innovation. It's not like you're doing anything different per se. It's just a different way of doing it. What I say is innovation is bringing in autonomous devices to perform work otherwise performed.
What in the last, I'll let you choose the time frame, but what has surprised you the most security industry-wise?
Wow. Thanks for the prep, by the way.
Yeah.
Thanks for the.
No, we like to do these off the cuff, right, and really get you to share. So maybe not the most, but name a couple of things that have surprised you.
The number one thing today that surprised me is that it's taking the industry so long to get over their fear of being first and get into their fear of missing out.
Right.
That's
Great point.
Because So, you know, we talk all the time about employment issues, rising wages, can't find talent, high turnover, and yet we do the same thing the next day. And there are other solutions out there. And now finally, I finally feel that the industry is waking up. And now that the industry is waking up, I think that pace of change and that pace of adoption is going to be startling.
Yeah.
I'm saying 3 years from now, there is going to be a relatively significant line item on the income statement of guarding companies for autonomous response devices.
There is more acceptance that it's becoming one industry. I'm fond of saying that we can't be a guarding provider or a technology provider. You have to be a solutions provider. But having said that, what do you see as still those obstacles that people just can't get over when it comes to one or the other?
I don't know if it's irony or coincidence. I don't know like what the right word is, but it's funny. I'll use the word funny. It's not the right word, but how now guarding and technology is kind of teaming together against real innovation. I find that remarkable. And the reason is that real innovation challenges the status quo. And at this point, after folks like you and I have been doing this for 25 or 30 years, we're good at it. It's tough to pierce the environment that we've created as an industry. So that's a challenge, and we challenge both sides of the business because we're going to replace human hours per week with machine hours per week. As security practitioners, we're too often trying to sell guarding services or technology.
Yep.
And let's get past that and understand our clients' problems so that we can come up with solutions. That's where we have to be. Whether that solution is guards, technology, autonomous technology, that's it. And that's going to be
feel the pain and solve the pain.
Yeah, whoever can connect the best with the customer's problems and bring the best solution is going to win.
Yep, sure.
And that's what I need to encourage our industry to do, is to adopt a solution viewpoint as opposed to I'm going to push what we've got. One of the things that I wrote on a couple years ago was the relationship between the C-suite and the security department. And I wrote about how in many cases the C-suite has a level of intimidation from the security department, much like the C-suite will have intimidation from the IT department.
Right.
Where the IT CIO comes and says, hey, we need to spend $6 million on this. And the CEO's like, what? And he's like, IT guy's like, well, if we don't, right? If we don't, the CEO's like, you just gave me notice, now I got to go spend $6 million, right?
Yeah.
Security department is the same thing. Well, if we try this and it doesn't work, are we really further ahead? And CEOs backs off. And the piece that I wrote, which I think went nowhere, but it was a good piece, was helping to strengthen C-suite folks as they engage in security practitioner discussions, to challenge them to do better. That's the beauty of these transformations that are under the fourth industrial revolution. Now, the listenership, I just probably lost half of them, so I'm sorry. Okay. But we're in the midst of a significant change in society, which is going to bring strange changes, weird changes, uncomfortable changes. It's just how it is. The pace of change here can rapidly change. And it's super exciting. I'm on pins and needles because I'm like, when is that going to happen? I got a small factory, it's 30,000 square feet. I need more space.
I was going to say.
Third industrial revolution, you needed to buy computers, servers, all kinds of stuff. A unique factor of the fourth industrial revolution is you don't. Particularly in our security industry, where it's all machine as a service type of payment. Pay as you go, pay every month, no capital expenditure. That's one of the reasons why when this bubble bursts, dam breaks, whatever analogy you want to go, it's going to go fast. Security guarding companies that are in early, learn how to sell, learn how to implement, learn how to keep customers happy, are going to be stronger on their top lines and their bottom lines. And I think that is transformational. The reason is that it's going to change how customers view their relationships with their service providers.